You are listening to the Fresh Take Network.
What it is, what it do, welcome to Fresh Take. Joshua Adam William Arthot with Richard Stroban and a very special guest, a jack of all trades, a freelance, just overall sports reporter, and from City TV News, bringing in a little friend on the side for those that can see in the video, the
Little
one,
Dean
the
Martin.
only, Lindsay Dunn, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, wah, 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 wah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Boom. Gotta get the air horn.
We got to put the sound effects in.
Gotta
later.
get the Raptors one when they hit the three and they have that.
How the hell are you?
I am honestly somewhat on cloud nine given the weird world that we're in, but
Yeah.
I was just like nerding out to you guys before we started. I love my job today, like everything. I got to talk about basketball, hockey, music. Like I am really fortunate and lucky, and you had nothing to do with it, Richard.
No, I
You
know,
were
I
just-
didn't.
I'm just kidding. It was a huge part. I'm so pumped to be here to talk about everything.
I tried to discourage things as best I could. Lindsay is a grad of our program at SAIT, as is Josh as well. They just missed each other, actually. Lindsay graduated and then left, and then Josh came in this September. So their paths didn't cross. But yeah, Lindsay, I mean, when you came in, you were a firecracker and you had this unbelievable passion and desire. And we talked about that just before we hit record on this. It's like there's a direct correlation to the spirit of who you are, of the work commitment you had, the attitude you had, and then all of a sudden you fast forward, and in 10 years or less, you know, you're covering music, you're covering basketball, you're covering sports. I didn't know this, and I'm embarrassed, so I'm laying this out there. Some of the names that you've interviewed since leaving SAIT: Magic Johnson, Steve Nash, Jonathan Travers, Juliana Moore, Tim McGraw, LeBron James, Keith Richards, and just yesterday interviewed the Tom Jones. It's like, okay, so whenever I talk to some of the past students and we go on these podcasts, one of the questions, and I usually ask it later, but I'll ask it now. It's like, at a point in time, Lindsay, real life starts surpassing the dream. When you came in and were sitting in that classroom, you didn't think you were going to be sitting across from Magic Johnson and Steve Nash and LeBron, did you?
No, I can't believe that at all. And honestly, I also just had a one-on-one with Raptors head coach Nick Nurse, and it's like been multiple, and we just talked about prints and random stuff. And it's just in that class, I remember, and I actually went to your office after it happened. I was lucky. In second year, I got the sports beat, and I went and interviewed former Calgary Stampeder Nick Lewis, who's now retired, and I think in the CFL Hall of Fame.
He just got announced Hall of Fame yesterday. Yeah.
I remember running to your office so excited, and the questions, I don't even know if I asked him any. I remember shaking on the field, being able to talk to him about some charity event. And it was the first time I ever got to speak to an athlete about a sport that I loved. And I was living that moment that I didn't think was possible. I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan. The fact that now I'm a BBC correspondent for WNBA and NBA doesn't make sense coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would be where I am today. I surpassed everything I ever thought I would do, but I also love working, and I work too much, as my husband will say, but I love it.
It's a pinch yourself moment. A lot of times it's like, how the hell is this me? Am I living somebody else's life right now? But it's the dream that kids come into the classroom, and they still come in with these dreams of being able to do things. And I got to admit, Lindsay, you know, for people like you and Ron Tarrant, who's gone on to work for Howard Stern, Kelsey McEwen, who does the national news, you know, on Canada AM or Good Morning Live for CTV. It's like, for all these students that have come in and, like I've said, have real life has surpassed whatever dream they came in with. Anything really is possible, isn't it? It really is.
Absolutely, with a lot of hard work. Some people are really lucky if you will go into a program or whatever, right out of that, you get your dream job. What is it? A sideline reporter or your foreign correspondent covering the wars, whatever it may be. Some people are lucky and it just happens. It's very rare, but you have to work your butt off. A lot of the times, I'm going to tell you, for years, I was doing things for free. I would write about the NBA, WNBA, hockey, whatever it could be, for free. And I'm talking, this only stopped a couple of years ago. And then I realized I don't actually have enough time to do it, and I'm getting paid to do what I love. But you have to put yourself up there, and you're going to get a million no's, and there's no way you can't take it personally. but you have to keep going. And if like one of my first jobs, I was covering news. And I'll be honest, that's not my strong suit, but you're not going to get the dream job right away. You have to do the best at what you have then to prove yourself to get those future opportunities. And that was actually advice I got when I was at SAIT.
It's probably advice I give to my students still now. I use this stupid cliche, but it's the truth. When I worked at CJ, and anybody that was working with me, the people that are first start, I get them to do the grunt work, the shit work, hanging a banner, and I still say that in class. If you can't hang the banner straight at the radio station, then there's no pride, there's no determination, there's no desire. How am I going to give you anything big to do if you're not going to do the little things? And, some people say, oh, Lindsay's just lucky. I completely disagree with that. Luck is not a quality. Luck happens when skill meets opportunity, and you had the skill and an opportunity came along and you kept grinding away at it to the point where it was like, wow, this is really good. This person should get paid to do this. And that's where you're at now. So you went to U of R, and took their, was it Bachelor of Canadian History or something? Is that right?
Yeah. And to go into journalism after that. Yeah.
Okay. And then came to SAIT. Then your first job, you went back to the Flat Province.
I can see your dog run for days and days. Quickly before I go to the Regina job that I got after, I actually went to SAIT. A lot of people don't know about this. I'm extremely shy, which is hard to believe. It takes a while for me to be that firecracker, and every day sometimes it's a struggle. So people are like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this job if you're shy? Like, you can do it. But I went to Calgary because I didn't know anybody, and it helped me get out of my shell. And when you're comfortable in what you're doing, then your confidence comes out. But yeah, I was so lucky. I had an internship at CTV Yorkton, which is just outside of Regina. Then the Regina news director at the time, Carl Worth, who I owe a lot to, he brought me in to be like a digital person, but then quickly I was a VJ. Then I helped launch the morning show that was at CTV Regina. And then it kept going up from there, but like the daily grind of trying to do more stories or asking like, hey, can I do this? Or do you want help editing this? And also polishing up my skills, trying to learn how to do stuff like Adobe After Effects and that. But it's been an interesting journey, and I forget a lot of the steps that get here. So I'm going to say, anybody that tell me I'm lucky, like I realize I'm lucky to be in the position I am, but I have worked so hard, and there's so many no's. And honestly, when I got to Toronto, I had so much pushback, and specifically in the sports industry, so many sexist comments, even daily, and people not giving me a job because, hey, we already have a white blonde, or girls don't know sports, or we will hire you if you wear this. And I've always said no. So I am definitely not lucky, because the amount of opportunities I have turned down because I wanted to stay true to myself in a certain way I'm not lucky in that sense. I've worked very, very hard to get where I am. And I never admit that. I'm not bragging right now. This is awkward for me to talk about how happy I am where I am, but it's like, it takes a lot of work, everybody. It's not just hanging out with Dolly Parton on a Zoom. You got to work to get there, because that also happened this year, and I'm still pitching myself.
Oh my God.
Well, Lindsay, you mentioned some of those unfortunate sexist comments, and we've seen such a good progression for women journalists. How important was that recent all women's Raptors broadcast for you?
It was huge, and I'm friends with most of them, and I worked with them. I worked at TSN briefly at radio with Megan McPeak and Kayla Gray, who Kayla I see almost every time when we're able to actually go cover games in person. It's huge because it's showing for so many people that are haters out there that women can do all of these positions. And specifically, every single person that was on that broadcast, they have been working for years to get there. They didn't just get picked because they're women. They're an expert in the field, but they were finally giving an opportunity. So many of them I've known for years, and they never had that chance. So just to have those faces, and it's huge for people like me growing up. I rarely ever saw a woman on the sidelines that doing basketball, wherever it may be, or color commentator. The first time I ever did color commentating, and the last, was actually at SAIT, because there aren't those opportunities for women. So I think it will just continue to open the doors.
Yeah.
Well, and now you're seeing someone like a Rachel Nichols in a prominent spot on the jump,
Yes.
and you're seeing more and more, and even like players like Kia Nurse and Candace Parker come in and just kill it. I think Candace Parker is showing right now on the off season. It's really cool. Some of these WNBA players, right? They get a chance to work on their future as a player and really elevate themselves up. And we've seen Kia and Candace and others be able to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I'm a little heartbroken. Candace leaving the Los Angeles Sparks, because that is my favorite WNBA team. And she went to Chicago.
And those jerseys are so nice now. The new jerseys are so nice.
It's still a sensitive topic in a way.
Yeah.
Like, it's great, but it's actually bittersweet that a lot of them are doing the color commentating next. I actually spoke to Kia about this, because for years, most women though who are lucky to make the WNBA, which is one of the hardest leagues to make it to, there's such small roster spots there for so many talented people, is that they have to go play in Europe, Australia, wherever it may be, and they're basically playing 12 months of the year, and it's very hard on their body, their mind. They're not. And so for those that don't get those endorsements, like say Kia and Candace have been able to do, they have to go play there. But because Kia was able to get so many endorsements and these broadcast opportunities, she was able to let her body rest this off season. And she says it's the best she's ever felt. So it's great to see them having roles commentating on NBA, also to have a woman there that are so experts in that field, but also they're not getting paid nearly enough for what they're worth. So they have to find these other opportunities. And I'm not a feminist or anything. These are just the facts. And I'm spitting them. Did I sound cool saying that? Probably not.
Sure did.
Well, and like we talked about earlier, it's when skill meets opportunity, and the skill has always been there. There have been a lot of women broadcasters who were very skillful, but the opportunity was never there for them. And now, yes, things are finally starting to turn the tide a little bit into the right direction, where people are like, oh, geez, I guess they do know what they're talking about. But yeah, the sexist comments that you probably have had to deal with the first part of your career can be really demoralizing, for sure, I bet.
Oh, it crushed me, because I've never spoke about this, and I won't name names, but when I moved to Toronto, I had an opportunity to do something within the NBA, which to me was just, are you kidding me? The fact that I was even in this conversation, and the person that interviewed me was higher up within whatever this would have been. And I thought it went great. Then I get a text message like an hour later asking me to go for a drink. And I was like, oh, like, sorry, I can't, but I'm very friendly. Anybody that asks me to like hang out, I'm like, sure, because I'm just like, la, 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 we're all friends, which quickly learned that's not the case. Then they were sending me inappropriate messages and basically said, if you do this, I can help you get this job. And because I very politely like turned them down, because unfortunately, if you say something rude to somebody, even if they are being sexually aggressive or rude or whatever, they will make sure you don't succeed. And even though I was polite, this person crushed me, badmouthed me, made sure that I didn't have an opportunity, and let me know that they would not let me have an opportunity to join this certain organization. Wow. Because I did not want to hang out with them in a less than like a more than friendly way. And I let them know, like, I'm married. I don't even know how you would have got this for me to, and then I was like, the only reason I even got that interview is because they wanted more. I wasn't at that skill level yet to even be given that opportunity, which is why I was so shocked. But that crushed me. And honestly, that crushed me for years, but also pushed me to find other ways to try to get back to cover the sport that I love. And there was a while I couldn't talk about it because I was so mad. So like, there were so many other people that would have taken that bait that I know got that opportunity, or the ones that didn't, and they also got pushed down and then were too afraid to try to do anything. It has totally changed, but it crushed me. And to this day, like, I can tell you today, I recently had a byline on Sportsnet, and I'm also part of their show, Top of Her Game, with Tara Sloan, and I contribute articles and different videos and interviews to that. And I interviewed Tamika Catchings, who's a WNBA legend. She is going into the Hall of Fame this year with Kobe Bryant. And the amount of racist, but amount of sexist comments of how she shouldn't be there. Why do we have two women talking about basketball? It goes on and on. But I'm like, and honestly, most of the time I don't check social media because of this. It's not worth my time. But there is advancements. You have to just find a way to get past it and not let these 1 or 100 people bring you down. And remember, at the end of the day, like, your worth, you've earned where you are. And just, I know it's crazy, but it's rough.
Do you realize that you're the inspiration for the 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls that are watching right now going, I guess I can do this? Because Lindsay, when you were that age, there was nobody that looked like you that was doing that. And to now be that person that these adolescents, teenagers are looking up to, one day I want to do what she's doing.
I'm mad at you. I don't like to show emotions. I've actually never had anybody talk to me like that way. Well, or I ignore it because
But it's true.
It's hard to believe, and I really find a hard time putting in perspective. Like my husband will brag about me. He's the most wonderful person in the world, or my parents, because I don't think of what I've done. I just think of how lucky I am. And then I forget all of those multiple months and days and years that you're working for free, or you're just trying to push it out there, or get your name out there, or have that one opportunity to talk to Lewis for that first time about an interview, and then build it from there and keep that excitement. Is that I hope for however anybody identifies, is the one thing I really hope is that I can kind of portray to people is don't change who you are, but also, oh, this sounds weird saying, but just be nice. I think I'm not a jerk. And that's one thing that I hear a lot is people say, oh, you're not from here. When I'm covering something in LA, like I covered Kobe's last game, I cover a lot of different things in LA or in Toronto. They're like, where are you from? And I was like, well, why does it matter? Like, well, you're not trying to cut my throat or delete my script or steal my interview. I'm like, well, why would I? If you get it, good for you. You earned it. I have to do better and try to get it on my own.
Because you're Canadian.
Well, yeah, I was like, I just hope that people work hard and try to be nice, because that's really how you should want to be remembered or thought about.
You mentioned
person will see him be where we go.
Yeah. You mentioned Kobe's last game. I know Josh has got to talk about this, so go ahead.
Yeah, that's my favorite player. So just interested in the whole spectacle of it all. How did it come about? How was it afterwards? I mean, obviously you felt the electricity on TV when that fourth quarter came, and I was a wreck by the end of it. I was lucky enough to go to a few games that year live to kind of see the farewell tour in Texas, but just you could feel that whole emotion on TV.
It was wild, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. Like, it's so unfortunate and sad that he passed away and others on that helicopter tragedy. But I grew up loving Kobe. I was number 8. I never switched to 24 playing basketball. He's one of the reasons I loved it. Yes, and my dog's name was Chiquita Kobe Bryant Sylvester Stallone Dunn Peterson. Long name, but like I loved him. I don't have kids, so I name everything I can. And like something after Kobe. I had the headphones still at my work. Like everybody knows I love Kobe. My first interaction, I interviewed him actually in Toronto for that farewell tour. I got like a couple quick questions in with him, and I was shaking. And I remember like turning around and be like, did anybody else just see that I talked to Kobe? Is this Kobe Bryant? Hello? And then after that, I was like, hey, I'm going to try to get accredited to go to this. I've been covering this for a long time. I've got a good rapport with them. Didn't think I was going to get it. They said yes. I called a freelancer I know that lives in LA saying, can you help me? They're screaming on the phone, like, can you believe it? And then my husband's also an audio engineer and a videographer. And I was like, hey, let me see if I can get you to come help. And I told him, and they said, sure. He's like, oh, that's cool. He doesn't like sports. I don't know how we're together and doesn't understand how big of a deal this is. But walking into the Staples Center and around it, just the fans and the passion and the love and the constant chants was an electricity I still feel today. And then being on the court, I was on the court during warmups. Now this is weird. I'm talking to Jack Nicholson. I'm talking to David Beckham. I don't know how these words are coming out of my mouth right now. I'm not a name dropper. It's just such a weird, surreal thing that you see on TV your entire life. And you're talking about Kobe. And then he runs right past me in this one video my friend has. And this is for those that, like, I was gobsmacked. My mouth dropped. I'm like, holy, it's Kobe in the last game. But it was just electric. It was emotional. And when he like dropped the points and after, it was insane. And then after you're in the media room with him, everybody's trying to ask a question and Magic Johnson just walks in and people are just, and like any celebrity you can imagine that was there, they're trying to yell words at him when he's at the podium. It was an insane moment and it showed his greatness as an athlete, but he was such a humble person when you actually were to speak to him at times, talking about his game. So he's gone too soon, but that is a surreal memory I will always have. I think that's my favorite memory of all time in my career and in my life. Like I just don't like, it's something very few people can say I was at Kobe Bryant's last game.
Well, it's one of those sports moments. No, it's one of those sports moments you think about in our lifetime that's just going to be, obviously, unfortunately, the tragedy, I guess, escalated it a little bit. because of, the past and everything like that. And, wearing the WNBA hoodie, one of the reasons I got it, because you can't help but think about Gigi whenever you see the WNBA hoodie now. I think she seems to be such a strong symbol of that. But I think it's one of those situations that it's like calling a Super Bowl almost, right? You got to have one of those big sports moments to put onto your resume.
Oh, absolutely. So I also covered the 2019 Raptors finals. I was there for all of that.
Were you there for the Kawhi shot?
Oh, yeah. So, and I'm not bragging to say it, but I'm like, to put it into perspective, for me, covering Kobe Bryant's last game was more to me. But I was there for the Kawhi shot. I was actually like doing a live and trying to say this. I was in there for every game. I was in there after, in the locker room and on the streets when they won. But that Kobe thing was more for me. It was like the personal level and the sentimental moment. And I realized the Raptors won their first championship, but there was just something about being there for Kobe's last game. And that was even before the tragedy that I felt so close to that moment.
Well, that was the same night as the Warriors going for 73. And I remember there was that big juggling in the media. It's like, what's going to be more important? Like, this is history. The Warriors going for 73. And there was that like side, people like, well, it's the Warriors 73. Like, it's Kobe's last game. But and then by the end of the night, no one gave a crap about the 73. It was all about Kobe.
Shouldn't even been a consideration. That'd be something like Richard considering.
Yeah. I want to take it back a little bit. What made you, when you were growing up, want to be a broadcaster? What was that like? Was there like an aha moment? That's what makes me want to be in this industry?
Two answers to that, kind of. It's two-parter. Is one, I had somebody very close to me that wanted to be a journalist when I was in grade 8. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know that was possible. These people on TV, I didn't understand that was a career I could have, or when you hear them on the radio or writing, I did not understand that was a career that you could have. And then when I heard that, I was like, can this be? Is this something that I could potentially have? And this is coming from somebody that I truthfully did not talk in school, which is hard to believe when you're listening to this. But a couple of years before that, or really early on in life, I loved basketball. And when Kobe, the NBA, Magic Johnson, I would always practice their shots in my driveway or when I played basketball with the teams. And then when I found out journalism was a thing, all I ever wanted to do, because I knew I wasn't getting into the NBA and I sure as heck am not getting into the WNBA, was to report on it. So that's been my life goal, to do this. And one of the first times I was ever interviewed outside of school was like, what was my goal? And I said, to cover the NBA. And it's weird because that is exactly what I'm doing today. But that's why I wanted to get into it. But J-Dog, why did you want to be a broadcaster?
Man, you're only the second person ever that's called me J-Dog. So that's interesting. It's a long time ago called that. But for me, it was kind of the same thing. I mean, I grew up, playing basketball, and my back and my shoulder went out. So I always kind of had that in my back pocket. I'm like, I don't have the patience to coach in this. I was a terrible official because I've tried everything. I've done the officiating, I've done the coaching, and the playing was okay. But I just remember tuning into an NBA and NBC theme one day and just hearing I think it was the 1990 finals, actually. That's the one when Jordan does the stupid shot that doesn't even need to happen. And just remember, I think it was Costas, and probably it would have been, I don't know if it would have been Isaiah Thomas at that time, but just the glamour of everything like that. They had the big theme after, and they had the people on the sidelines, and they were talking to them. And I'm like, wow, like if I don't get to play, it'd be really cool to just at least be there. And as time went on and you get to see the evolution of everything like that, it's like, yeah, I'd rather just be able to have these interviews with these players and get to know them a little bit more. And the one thing I saw on your LinkedIn with looking at that is that you write for Slam, which that was something super jealous of, because growing up reading Slam and be like, oh, why not? I want to write for these articles. And me and my sister, who is little cheap plug in the U of A Hall of Fame as a women's player. I'm quite proud of that. But we'd always like, oh, how could we get articles into Slam? Like, because they'd always have those small pieces on the up and coming players or whatnot. And I remember when Tyler Fiddler was out here in Calgary, I'm like, I'm going to write a piece on Tyler Fiddler, and then they'll know about Tyler Fiddler. He didn't really end up doing much, but just kind of being like this side of it and writing about it and talking about it and being in this golf, in this culture, how else can I explain it in this world? So that's a big part of why everything. And then obviously kind of, I'm so jealous you got to interview Kobe, and it's one of the things when the unfortunate passing, when I'm like, man, I know I got to see him, but that was my number one interview I wanted to have, was him and Jordan. So I still have that chance with Jordan and LeBron, but It's like, that's never gonna get to happen now. That's such a bummer that I don't get to have that on the back of it. So I'm glad that you got to have it, but kind of just such that passion of wanting, knowing that, like you were saying, like the plane probably wasn't ever going to happen, but there was this other whole world I could be involved with it. And doing the play-by-play that I do for the Trojans for the last 9 years now has kind of, and I did a little bit for North Pole Hoops as well, brings me a little bit closer. And the cool thing about doing North Pole Hoops or SAIT is you get to watch some of these young men and women get to grow their games and see them out and see them grow as well.
So Lindsay, Kobe, check. LeBron, check.
Jordan.
Michael Jordan, question mark.
So for me, it would be Kobe, check. Magic, check. Dr. J, check. Love me some Dr. J. But Michael Jordan, I'm terrified to ever have the chance to interview, because I will tell you over the years, the people that are your heroes or you admire, I'd say you admire them or you respect them, can be grade A-holes. I will censor myself so you don't have to bleep it. They can be big A-holes, and it will ruin your love of their music or them as whatever they may be. And Michael Jordan, I don't think I could personally handle, because I'd probably like crumble out of nerves and just excitement. But I don't think I would do it. I am going to let the history of hearing how he is impact my judgment, because I hear he's not the most friendly interview. But maybe if it was like on a red carpet and you yell something and he's running by you, I will take that as my shot. Other than that,
like
I'm way too terrified.
I never want to interview Harrison Ford, because I've seen enough Harrison Ford interviews. I'm like, I don't want that ruined. To have that experience ruined, because he just seems like a huge grump.
So other than basketball, there's been some pretty cool people. Keith Richards that you've interviewed on the music side, Dolly Parton,
Ringo Starr.
Ringo Starr.
Wow.
How does this stuff come about? Like, okay, so how do we go from Nick Lewis and you coming into my office and saying I just shit my pants and interviewed Nick Lewis, and I still remember that conversation with you.
Pretty sure those were my exact words.
That was exactly
Thanks.
it. Yep. And I said, I can't wait to watch you on the sidelines at the CFL. I remember having that conversation with you, and boy, was I ever wrong, because maybe you were on the sidelines at CFL, but look again, the dream, real life surpasses that dream. So in regards to the music side of things, how does somebody go from doing all this basketball stuff and all this WNBA stuff as well, and all the other sports, and then doing music as well? The title, obviously, but what tell us all about this journey.
Yeah, it's wild to say right now. I'm like I'm the national sports and music reporter for City News, not just City News Toronto. So I still don't really understand how it happened, but here is how I will tell you it happened. I was also inspired by music. I always wanted to be a musician growing up, but the shyness, not wanting to sing in front of people or share your lyrics, well, you see, that will hold you back. That's not really the rock star material. No. So one of my favorite jobs in life to this day was working at HMV. Oh, it's now closed. I loved it. But talking about music and interacting with people, and that just the passion and going to concerts, but why someone like this lyric or whatever it may be, it was their thing. So the whole time I was at CTV or TSN or Global, don't know where else I've been, but during those jobs, I always freelanced. I would find places that would take new writers or for free, wherever it may be, and ask like, hey, do you need a new writer? Do you want me to write on any up and coming artists? Do you want this? Do you want that? I can go film this. I can edit this. I can help you edit your interview. I can take photos. I constantly was trying to find opportunities, all free, to still be a part of that industry that I loved. And that's how I'm still where I am today, because over the years, I was interviewing artists that people were not so excited to at big labels or big stations, that they're like, hey, we remember you interviewed so-and-so. Well, how about you interview Ringo Starr or this or whatever it may be? And I'm like, sorry, you want me to interview who? Like the one that honestly to this day I'm still floored was Dolly Parton and Gibb at the beginning of this year on a joint Zoom. Like, we're talking legendary BJ who wrote so many hit songs that people forget about and has inspired so many. They're both on the same call together. But it's because for years I freelance in every sense of that word, talking about music, trying to tell their stories, and just doing that because I also have the passion for that, and I didn't want to give it up because I didn't want to have to choose from them both. And that's like one of the fun things right now is that I'll talk to a musician about sports and talk to an athlete just about music. Like I said about Nick Nurse, we just spoke about Prince the other day. That is it, and his record collection, because they want to talk about it. And it's just, there was the grind that got me here, and now it's like unbelievable that every day it's like, hey, I just talked to Tom Jones or whatever it may be. I usually don't tell people this, and I hate posting it on social media because it seems braggy, but I also need to, make sure I keep my job.
You have to market your brand, right? And that's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned social media because you're not that showy, braggy type person, but you still have to let people know what you're doing so that they can follow you and justify the position that you have with the company that you're with. So social media, kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Ooh, it is. So I would love to hear both of your thoughts on this after. We truthfully just had I don't even know if I'm supposed to share this, but I will, a company-wide meeting for on-air talent about social media. And I think every company should have this with whoever works for them. I don't care if you're in the industry or not, because you are representing that company if you have it in there. Social media at the beginning, I loved it because there is that thrill of somebody retweeting you or liking you, and like Vanilla Ice follows everyone. I remember the day he followed me, like, oh my gosh, Ice Ice baby. No. But I actually grew to hate it a couple of years ago during the NBA finals with the Raptors because there was a viral moment I was involved in with Drake. I posted a video where I ran to a scrum that he was in when the Raptors were, I believe, Eastern Conference Final. I don't even remember because this night was such a blur for me. But I ran, you see me leap into a scrum because I was in the middle of doing a live hit, and I see him talking to other media, and I jump over someone and put my mic in. And then after, I go back and just calmly talk about what was happening. I just went right back into it. But that video got like millions and millions and millions of views overnight. And to this day, I get hundreds of DMs or comments or emails or likes or retweets, whatever it may be, specifically about that, asking for a Drake autograph. Do you know Drake? Raptors suck. Whatever they may see about it, that I was just like, I don't want this. It's too much. And I would say 50% of the comments I get are sexist about the story that I'm doing. A lot of them are either I've slept with the player or the musician or whatever it may be. I have certain words blocked on my social media channels. Like, it doesn't bother me. I just have no time for that kind of energy. I'm an annoyingly bubbly person, which my coworkers don't get. And I just don't want to waste my time with it. So this is what I do. And I know my coworkers, if they ever hear this, they were like, yeah, it makes no sense to us. I download the apps. I will post something about, say, Tom Jones or whoever it may be, or just, I don't post anything about my personal life usually ever. And then I delete the app. I'm then not scrolling on it. Yes, I will miss certain story things, but usually I'll hear about it anyway. But I'm not going through then also looking at what other people are doing, because I don't care anymore. That used to bother me. My one advice is don't care what other people are doing. Do what you can to make you happy, because social media is the worst thing. Like, you shouldn't care about the likes, and all of that unfortunately matters now. They will look at how many followers you have, how many likes you have to get a job. But I don't care. If you're not going to accept me because I only have one like on a video or whatever, that is your problem. And I don't check my DMs or really anything anymore. And I haven't for years. The odd time I'll go on because someone will message me saying, hey, look at this hilarious dog video. I sent you it on Instagram. And then I'll try to find it. And then I just delete it again.
It can be a big, you wanted my take on it. Social media can be a big time vacuum when it really comes down to it. And there are so many other things that I need to get done in life. When it comes to family, work, other things, just enjoyment factor to enjoy life, that the last thing I want to do is sit on a really nice park bench in Canmore and sit here and scroll through a bunch of things on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok and not enjoy the moment that I'm in. So if you've found a strategy, and it sounds like you have, that works for you, your brand is what you are doing, right? And if people are interested in it, and I'm going to ask a question a little later about what's next for you, but what your social media platform and profile is not going to affect what you do next and what the next job will be, because you've done other things that will overshadow that. the people that don't have the opportunities that you've had and the opportunities to, then I guess they need that. But you have to have several coats of Teflon to be able to not have this affect you, right? No matter how strong you are mentally, anybody out there, because there are keyboard warriors out there that, you talked earlier about the sexist comments. A lot of times you knew who was saying it, at least, right? And you could attribute it to, I guess that person maybe have done it before or whatever. But when it comes from somebody, or should we say dozens, hundreds, thousands of keyboard warriors, you have no idea where it's coming from, right? And to be inundated with that type of material all the time, how is it not mentally taxing on anybody? So I'm really glad to hear you found a strategy that works great for you and that you're comfortable with what you're doing, and more importantly that you still have that wonderful smile, wonderful energy that you had a decade ago, and somebody's off the cuff comment about whatever you're wearing or why you got to where you are is going to be, it's like, well, I don't go to your place and tell you how you burnt the fries that I'm eating now either. So
I think the thing we've learned is, just from covering WNBA stuff, or even recently covering Falcon Winter Soldier, when a really good episode happens and it's like, oh, there's politics in this, and they're talking about Black America and Black Lives Matter. I think that, and then we get comments talking about it from us reviewing an episode or whatnot. I think the muted words have been an absolute key. And if we weren't trying to build a brand here, I would definitely be off. I think those words, sometimes you learn they speak the loudest sometimes because they're right in your face. But the best way to do is, like Lindsay was saying, just avoid them. Stay away from it, because those voices are going to be the loudest and the most negative when there's a majority of not having that. And I think we've really learned that reviewing this latest Marvel show, with how much negativity and racism that there's been. And I can't even imagine being a female reporter or WNBA player. I look at the comments. I remember Elena Deladone, who's one of my favorite WNBA players. She did a thing where she did like mean tweets, and it was like, get in the kitchen, make a sandwich. And it's always that whenever Bleacher Report puts a WNBA stuff on, it's like, these are just assholes that are just going to put up the negative stuff because that's what they are, and they have no life. And I think I've started to learn that a little bit more, to the point, about a year ago, I definitely pulled back on the personal stuff, because that's just not going to do anything for you. It's not going to lead to anything. There's always going to be some criticism of this and that. And I think what you were saying, Lindsay, it's kind of what I've kind of done, like with, I'll post the podcast and then I just won't really talk to any of those apps again for the rest of the day, because there's always something negative or not really positive that someone's going to say. And I think it's so crucial too, when you're saying, like, people are going to be looking for followers, right? Of like, oh, you have this many followers, so can I get your attention to do this and that? And it's really not about that as individuals.
And I think a hard thing that you mentioned too, though, is when you post that thing, all of us are now kind of conditioned to see, like, how many people have listened, how many people have liked this. And when you don't have that, it's disheartening. She'll think, well, I don't think they like me. And it's something society, we're getting deep, as a whole needs to like just condition ourselves to not feel that way. And I don't think it's going to change soon. So it's like, you have to change it yourself. I know people that they're off social media, but I get it. When you are trying to build a brand or get a job, you're on social media. So the only thing you can do is like, be kind, limit your time, and just try not to also see what other people are doing. It's very hard not to, no matter who you are.
Yeah. Everybody's trying to be the popular boy / girl in high school.
They're trying to get the most likes,
or get famous too. Yeah.
And you see this happening as well now that you've got some fame and interviewing these people. It's not so much that they're interested in what these people have said. It's like, can you get me what can you do for me, type of thing. And that's not what you're doing it for, so wanted to talk a little bit about we touched on it before. Again, the last 10 years have been a whirlwind for you. What's next? Like again, that dream has been surpassed a long time ago. Is it just continuing what you're doing, or is there a new dream now of what you want to do?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to own a WNBA or NBA team, but I don't have billions of dollars.
Right into Canada, Lindsay.
Yeah. Okay, if we got a WNBA team or another NBA team to Canada, I think my life would be set. I've been pushing this for the entire time that I've been in Toronto, for about the last 7 or 8 years. I actually haven't thought about what's next. When we look at the industry now, I cannot tell you the amount of people I know that have lost their jobs. like not only in the industry, but just in life. Like it's tough.
Yep.
And even before the pandemic, this industry is so small and it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So I haven't thought that far ahead because I know in the future, my role probably won't be there. I'm being realistic. And so I'm just trying to, in a way, I'm going to use this term, like abuse my position and do what I love. Like I'm contributing WNBA stories to the major sports network in Canada and to a nightly news station. I get to talk to people that I have loved forever or help push their career or the undiscovered talent, whether it be music or sports. So the weird answer is like, I'm just going to keep loving the super awesome job that I have now. And then honestly, the dream would be to full-time cover a WNBA team or be within an organization. But I hope that doesn't happen for years because like, I hope that it comes off as genuine, not bragging. I love my job. I have pushed everywhere and like fought tooth and nail to get here, but I love it.
Yeah. And it shows, right? It shows with the amount of work you put into it and the amount of time you put into it. And you know, the skills that you've developed from going to university, coming to SAIT, going through all the jobs you're doing now, all the interviews you're doing and all the work, there are other skills that you're, getting better at and perfecting to the point in time that when this job ever does go away, because this particular job didn't exist before you had it, correct? So who knows what happens in the next 5 to 10 years, but ride the wave. And then when or if that wave ever dies out, then it's say, okay, where can I go from here? And, again, the opportunities will be there in a communications field or a public relations field or something like that, or media liaison that, you hop on the next wave and keep enjoying it. And I think that's the most important thing is it doesn't look like you've had one day of work since you've left school because it's all been fun and they keep paying you for it. Right.
Oh yeah, I will say this now for anybody listening and like saying how they wanted to start in sports. I mentioned how I started in news. I want to share this story because it's very important. I think I started in news and I was in there for a long time. I did all that freelancing stuff. I was really lucky to get on CTV Morning Live and do the entertainment and sports and traffic where they had no traffic in that place. But when I had to work at Global at technically what would be a bureau chief, and I was in charge of people in that. And I do not like bossing people around or giving them criticism, especially when some of them couldn't take it. And I do it in the nicest way, like, hey, maybe you want to try to do this. But I had to cover a school stabbing where I went to a high school and somebody stabbed a bunch of people. And I remember standing to this day out on that where you're legally allowed to be on the sidewalk, interviewing people about their friend who was either stabbed or the person who stabbed them and crying. And I just felt terrible. And I realized there's some people that love that. They thrive on getting that story. It was never me. And in that moment, I realized that completely crushed me. I cried the entire way back to the station, cutting that story and said, I never want to do this. I don't want to have to tell these stories. I don't want to, like, they should be told, but I don't want to be the person that goes to somebody who lost a loved one or any of that. And I know if I would have stayed in that part of that field, that would have crushed me and destroyed who I am. I know that's a very drastic thing to say, but I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't try to steer it in my own path.
Josh, go ahead.
It's so true. I have my own story with that, but this is about Lindsay today, but it's so true. What was the pandemic like for you as a reporter? Yeah.
Oh, well, again, I'm really lucky I have a job. We were just discussing how so many people have lost their job in whatever field they may be in, but it has been a double-edged sword because people do not understand. Now they know there's no time barrier. There's no restrictions on, they know that you're at home. I'm terrified to go outside. I'm with somebody that has a compromised immune system, so I don't go anywhere else. So they know you're at home. You can't ignore their emails, their calls. So you are doing things constantly. I did 17 Zooms yesterday, and that is not including pressers and editing different things, plus doing BBC hits. Like, you are going morning to end, and I've not had a work-life balance. But thankfully, I love most of my work, and my life's like, my husband's just wonderful, like I said, but it's been different because it's a different kind of stress because I have no idea really what the reality is, what people are gravitating to or their moods or anything, except for I'm in my own bubble. The hardest part is not being able to see my coworkers, who a lot of them are my best pals.
Yeah.
But in a way, I got to work from home with a corgi puppy, and I got to see my husband every day. There'd be times where we wouldn't see each other for weeks because he'd be out filming something in like Ecuador or something crazy. So like I got to see him, and it was great. And then the best part about it, which I know it's bad to say about the pandemic, but I'll just say like having a work from home situation and being on Zooms besides seeing YouTube is the opportunities I've been given. We mentioned all these names. There's so many more that I just feel weird posting on social media that are viewed as little artists, athletes, or big time. And I've got to have them in my home. I'm in their home talking about the weird decor they have behind them or something. And you're having a one-on-one moment with them, even though it's through a computer. That has been the weirdest thing, because most of these people over the last, 12, 13 months I've interviewed, who knows if I would have ever met them. So it has been, in that sense, I like to find the positives. Awesome, because I've had so many opportunities I don't know if I would have had.
And when the pandemic is over and Dolly Parton goes on tour, there's a chance Lindsay gets a chance to go and do an interview with her live, right?
Absolutely. I will be the front row center. I'll be like, Dolly, remember me? And I'll hold a picture of me and her on that Zoom. Be like, you said hi, Lindsay.
How did number one, two things I was interested, how did BBC, you mentioned them a few times, happen? And for me, more interested, how did Slam happen?
That is another weird, interesting story, kind of, maybe just for me because I don't get it still, but also like I go on before this, because now it's a conflict because I work for Rogers, is I used to go on ESPN radio in the States and all these different radio shows. It started with the freelance stuff. Then and then social media, when I used it, sometimes it was to my benefit. I would put a tweet out or an interview I had with a lesser known NBA player, G League player, high school player. And then a smaller station would see it and be like, hey, can you talk to us about this interview? So somebody found me, whether it was an interview that was put online or a podcast or something, that got to ESPN. For Slam and other sports magazines, I would write pieces earlier on, and I just submitted like crazy because I believed in the person I interviewed. I didn't care if they didn't use my byline or storyline, whatever. I just wanted them to share the story that wasn't being told about a player. But now it's funny, can't remember his name, but he was also on a retirement tour the same time Kobe was, and he was getting no love from OKC. Had a great story.
Oh, Nick Collison?
No, but I love him. He's a firecracker. But I'll have to think of it. I'm just having a moment right now because I'm scatterbrained. But I just remember nobody's telling a story. And he was a 13-year NBA vet, and they would take these stories, they do it, be like, yeah, we actually weren't following this at all. So how I did the Slam and other ones, I put my name out there. BBC reached out to me because I was covering the Raptors' first Eastern Conference Finals run against the Cavs years ago, and saw my name come up on a local radio interview I did actually in Saskatchewan. Said, would you be interested in doing this? And for some reason they didn't hate what I said, because this is exactly how I talk on the radio. I'm zany. I like to talk about weird things, and I like to say Jonas the Lithuanian Lion Valanciunas. I like to give people weird names and not be so by the book, because people forget sports were supposed to be fun when they can be. It is just a game. But that's how it happens. So for you, like if this is what you have to like submit articles, story pitches. They have emails on all of these sites. You put yourself out there, you will get rejected 99% of the time, but that 1% is awesome when it happens.
Absolutely.
One of my last questions for you is, when we've asked a few guys like this that have been in the sports room, how has fandom been affected for you in one way or another? And it's like, we talked to Pat Steinberg, who works for the Flames. He's like, well, I just put everything into F1 racing because I don't have to cover that shit. How has fandom been affected for you?
Oh, that is so funny you ask, because I am hated and not hated for some reasons. And one is I don't mind not hiding the fact that I'm a fangirl.
Right.
Or whatever you may be, like Dolly Parton. And then I straight up told him, like, I love you forever. This is the greatest day of my life. I said that on the interview. and I meant it, but then I back up the facts being like, hey, this song from 1982, when you said this lyric and did it with this chord change, like a genuine nerdy fan. But when you're in the media room, you're not supposed to cheer. I also cover the Leafs, the Blue Jays, all of that. Sometimes I will cheer. You get these looks. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I am a Lakers fan through and through.
That's why I got the purple and gold today.
I'm yeah, great taste in sports, my friend. But
80 back tonight.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I love sports. I love the Lakers. Compose yourself. But when I like, all kidding aside, when I do go to the games or whatever, like I won't totally fangirl in front of them. If they're doing something wonderful for charity or something, like I will say like, oh, you're so great. But because I love the Lakers so much and I do get to cover them in the Sparks remotely, it hasn't really totally impacted it or any interactions I've had with the team when they've come through Toronto or me covering them when I'm in LA. It hasn't impacted it. Fandom, as being a Leafs fan, that was another great taste in sports. I will say, Richard, do not shake your head. Is the fans actually impacted me covering that and enjoying that? Not the players, not my love for it. It was the fans, because I just thought there's a lot of negativity and they're just constantly just mad at the team and everything in life. I'm like, hey guys, you got to believe we're getting the cup every year.
You did, and you always do.
Oh, this is their year. Woo!
I think the one thing about you that hasn't changed, there's many things, is you're just so authentic. You're you, and you put yourself out there. And like you said, that, cheering for your favorite team in the press box, nobody ever does that. But you know what? The one person who does, the rest of them are kind of like, geez, I wish I could kind of do that, but I'm not ballsy enough to do that. Right. And it's like,
oh,
I don't
totally.
care. This is who I
You see
am.
them white knuckled because they want to cheer, or they're just like, oh shoot, like, whoa, that's a goal. Anybody else see that? Or the Kawhi shot. I jumped up and down with my camera guy. Nobody else did. I'm like, I'm living in this moment, because you will lose those moments. But yes, there's times you have to be professional, and you don't want to be a complete loony bin like I am. And then I will tone myself down. But most of the time, I want to enjoy those moments because we are lucky to have them when we have them.
Mm-hmm.
As we learned during the pandemic, we're lucky to have them when we have them. That first NBA, WNBA game back, I was like, thank you.
I know, I'm just so happy.
So much classic NBA on YouTube. There's a lot.
Oh, I'm like, I can't wait to have fans back in arenas, and I know fans can't wait to go, because covering the Leafs, being inside the Air Canada Center without any fans, although they can be pretty quiet, it's just weird.
Yeah.
My last question for you, you probably have already answered it. For young broadcasters that I'm going to play this podcast to in my class, advice for them.
Be nice to Richard. Do your work. My advice, honestly, for everyone, I kind of said it, but I'll say it again, is first of all, be nice. It is a small industry, and you should just be a nice human being in general. You should treat people with respect, how you wanted to be treated. And it is surprising how many people forget it. This is a cutthroat industry. It is very small. People will try to bring you down rather than lift you up. You have to always be the person to help lift somebody up. If this in the end, somehow they get a job over you because you were encouraging them, just work harder, but be happy that you helped them. And I think I don't see it a lot that people are nice to each other. It's competitive and it's heartbreaking. So be kind. You will always somehow end up seeing somebody that you either went to school with or your first job with. So treat them with respect. You don't want to have the feeling like where you're being attacked or anything. So just be nice, but put in the work. Also, you always have to be trying to broaden what you're learning. Like, I didn't have After Effects in school, so now I taught myself that within the last couple of years, and that has helped me greatly advance my career and just have more fun with my job. And be nice, be creative, and try to get a thick skin, because I don't have one.
I think you do. Josh, anything last words from you?
No, just go Lakers. Back to back coming. 80 back tonight. King coming back soon. Just an absolute privilege to have you. I guess the last one is, you got Magic. Have you gotten? I guess the last big Laker that you maybe haven't gotten is Kareem. I'm guessing, right?
No, I interviewed Kareem. I have.
You got Cap. Okay.
Twice. I actually got him once in Cleveland.
You get Shaq then?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Just the checklist of Lakers.
Sorry, Derek Fisher for me was a big one, because I loved when he played with Kobe, and he had so many game-winning clinching shots. It was just like a baller. Now he's the coach of the Sparks and GM. Like, this is just weird. But most of Jerry West, all of them, Jeannie Bust. I went through them all. I'm not bragging, but it's just such a wild
you got Jeannie
moment.
too. That one, that's one of the one I don't know how well I would be able to do personally. It'd be interview Jeannie.
But the one that I haven't, that I want to, that I'm afraid of, is actually Phil the Thrill Jackson. He was such an amazing coach, a mentor to so many people. His story with Jordan, Rodman, Kobe, all of that. Only person's book I've ever read. So I'm like, I also read my school books, just saying, kids.
Yeah. Read those textbooks that you put $100 down on.
And she's
Lindsay,
not a fan of a Space Jam sequel either, just to let everyone know.
Don't get me started. That's for another chat.
All right.
I sent you a how bad do you want it bracelet a long time ago, and I know I said it in that letter that you got, but I am exceptionally proud of what you've done and what you continue to do. Thank you for being an incredible ambassador for our program. The opportunity that you've been given, and now the advice you give the young people that are following behind you. Just keep forging that trail, continue to do what you do, and most importantly, keep having fun, because that's when the best stuff comes out, right?
Thanks for having me.
You're
Everybody
welcome.
get up, it's time to slam now. We got a real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam.
Cheers and enjoy the day. Thank you so much, Lindsay.